Oh, yes.
Your family's had to adjust to a lot more changes than others. First off,
They have.
yeah, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thank you so much for asking. You know what? This has been a journey, but I'm grateful to be sitting here with you today.
Well, we're thankful that you're opening up your office and letting us see you face to face, and it's nice to see you without a mask for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and we are properly social distancing, so look at us. This is going to be great.
Tell me a little bit about what your recovery's been like for you.
You know, it hasn't been easy, and nor should it be. The team at Barrows Neurological are absolutely amazing. I couldn't have done this without them and the support of my family. You know, my lead doctors and surgeon said, "You're going to see a difference every single day." And I didn't believe him at first. I was like, my goodness, you just were in my head. How is that even possible? And, you know, as you can see from the short hair and my scar, I mean, it was certainly an extensive surgery, but making improvements every day, and, you know, really seeing how other people with traumatic brain injuries that have been treated at Barrows are making tremendous strides with the great work, and all during COVID, which I know is a challenge for everyone these days.
Absolutely. You mentioned your glasses are new.
They are.
What else is new that you've had to adapt?
Well, I haven't really had to adapt to anything. I've been very lucky, very blessed, in the sense that, you know, everything has really returned to basically normal. But at the start, I did have some difficulties with, you know, balance has been was a little bit of an issue, and, you know, coordination and stuff. But by the time that I was released from the hospital, it has been great. The vision part, you know, when I fell, it did affect that, and that affects, you know, my balance and all the rest of it. The glasses are temporary. I'm just kind of getting things back to normal because I used to have 20/20 vision. So I just am also taking in the different look as well and owning it.
That's awesome. I love
Thank
that.
you.
And it's good to be back, I'm sure, and, you know, be with your team again. Tell me a little bit about, so have you lost vision in just your left eye in some ways, or?
I have not lost vision in either eye. Thank goodness, because this could have been way worse. I could have lost vision because there are people that's happened to. Mine more is that my eye would not track together. My left and my right wouldn't track together at first. So that is really, you know, the injury part of it that we're trying to amend. But I can see perfectly with both of my eyes, thankfully.
I know. When you think brain surgery, it sounds so scary.
It does.
And I think all of us, you know, we've heard from so many in the community who are really sharing their prayers. I know your family heard them
Yes.
at the time. So what have your doctors told you about what to expect?
Well, you know, like I said, I have an amazing team at Barrows Neurological, but also in my family and friends. What they've told me to expect is that as long as I keep working hard every day, at, you know, just getting back to me, everything's going to be just fine. And I trust them. They've been telling me I've made a remarkable and speedy recovery, and I shouldn't have any lasting effects from this at all, whether we're talking cognitive, physical, anything like that. So, and it's thanks to their great work and care that they provided.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
With the brain bleed, was it on the top? We can see a little bit of the scar
Yes,
there.
you
Does it
can.
run atop the full skull, or how does that?
Well, so what happened was I fell inside my home at my Zoom station, because we all have those now. And at first, I just was like, "Oh, I hit my head." And my husband started seeing other signs like my eye. And so we went in at that point, and they actually took out all this part of my skull to let the swelling on my brain go down. And then obviously they replaced it a couple months later. But I had a clot on my brain. and a minor bleed. And they were able to take care of it without any other, collateral consequences, if you will. No other injuries or lasting effects from the surgery. And I have been doing great at recovery because of the good care that I got.
Yeah, Barrow's known worldwide for
Absolutely.
what they do, so we're thankful to have them in our backyard.
Yes, what a blessing we have in this community. Yes, they have been wonderful, and again, my family's grateful with them as well. And it's been a journey, absolutely. But I'm grateful for every life experience I have, good, bad, challenging, or it just adds to my life experience, and I think makes me a better mom. And I'm grateful to be back serving the community in the role that I was elected to do.
Yeah, I think anytime we have scary moments, medical moments, it kind of forces us to refocus, right,
Yes,
on
it
what's
does.
important. And so maybe that was the same for you.
My family means the world to me, and my friends as well. And so certainly there's those introspective moments, especially when I was, in the hospital, but also during the time of COVID. You'd hear alarms go off for people that were suffering from that and passing away. And that gives you perspective also of what we're all battling right now. Many of us have lost people, or at least know people who have had COVID. And so that in conjunction really gives you some perspective. And I am grateful for all the gifts that I've had in this life, including the recovery and being back at work and being with my family and trying to be as normal as possible right now.
That's a understatement, right? We're all trying to fight for normal or better than normal. But take me back in time. What were the circumstances of the fall? Was it on election night?
No, actually, it was a few days before election night. But my husband, again, started to see my condition deteriorate. And that's when we went in. And then after that, I had surgery pretty quickly over at Barrows, and then began the recovery process there for a couple of months. Because of COVID, my husband was the only one allowed in the hospital. And so I missed Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my children's birthday and their birthday party. But I got to FaceTime with them. Thankfully for technology, I still was able to interact with my boys, and they're at a tender elementary school age. So that was, it was difficult at times, but I was able to go home for a few days over the New Year's weekend. And then I went back to have the final part of the surgery and physical, recovery, if you will, when they actually put my skull back in place. And that was very rapid because I was only there for about 3 days, and I have been home, thankfully, ever since.
Was that December, or that would have been January?
It was January.
Okay.
That first week in January when I went back to Barrows for a couple days.
Okay. And on the night, was it at night, the fall?
Yes.
A couple days before election night. Were you in the middle of a Zoom call? You said as your Zoom station, were you getting ready to go on a call, or were you finishing up, or?
No, but I'll tell you, most of our lights, have the traditional switch, or we have them on our phone to turn them off. But in the corner of our bedroom, where it's really the only room I have paint, because I'm living with a bunch of boys, I have like this pink lit tree that has this beautiful ambient light. So it was in the evening, and I was going to plug that in. And that's when I tripped on the edge of what my Zoom station was, and I hit my head on the table that was there. So it's a little embarrassing as well. I tripped trying to plug in a pink light, but that's what I hit my head on the side, and I fell. Luckily, we have carpet in our bedroom. But again, at the time, it was ouch. I hit my head, but it wasn't like I passed out or anything like that.
Was it enough to make you bleed?
No.
Like externally?
I had no external bleeding. And nothing like that at all. And that's why I didn't think it was that severe, and we didn't end up having, the major corrective surgery and all that for a few days after I actually fell.
So the symptoms your husband noticed was like almost a lazy eye on the side?
Correct.
Or what other, were there any slurring or any other symptoms that were a red flag?
The main one that he relayed to me was my eye. That it was just as you characterized, like a lazy eye, and I wasn't able to focus and track with both eyes. I could see perfectly fine, but my left eye wasn't tracking the same with my right, and that's when he said, "That's when we're going in."
Okay.
I was still, being a mom and looking at the campaign stuff, working on that, making dinners, and I wasn't in any pain. I wasn't bleeding, but the damaging effects of the fall did start to come through, starting with my eye.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, when it initially happened, were wondering what were the circumstances of it. Were there other things going on in the house or otherwise that, maybe have contributed in any way to that? But
no, I wish I had a better story for what happened, but nope, it was at home.
a pink light.
Yes. Yes, I just wanted some relaxation in the room.
And had you ever fallen before that night?
No.
Or had any other health scares?
No, I do a lot of yoga, and I like to think that I have good balance. But you know what? Stubbing your toe on on the Zoom station is the culprit of all of this.
Oh,
and now that it's over, I just have to, all I can do is be more careful in the middle of the night and try and have a laugh from it. And thank God I'm on recovery.
So election night, how coherent were you on election night? I don't know what time of day you went into the hospital. Were you able to see what was going on with the returns and everything?
No, I was not able to see. I mean, I did watch a little bit, and my husband would update me, but I didn't know the final results because it took a little bit to get the final results in. And by then, I was heavily sedated. I still had waking moments, but I was on medication. And I didn't find out until a few days after the results had been finalized when my husband told me, "Hey, you won."
What time of day did you go in?
You know what? I actually don't know. I don't recall.
Okay.
I could guess, but I don't know if it's right or not. So
That's okay. So he told you won, and I know it was very close. We're talking less than 35,000 votes. What does that tell you about the state of our community?
It tells me, one, that I would really like people to know me better, that I am committed to doing the right things for the right reasons. It also tells me that we have good thinkers out there that are voting in our community. And I want to do the right thing and live up to expectations. And as the first elected woman county attorney, I want to make sure that the public has confidence in me and that we're protecting public safety. But you know what? That's why we have the process that we do. And while, believe me, any of us who run for office, that is a taxing experience. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting your family out there. The experience of running for office, I wouldn't trade for the world. But those who voted for my opponent, I hope that to earn their respect and their trust, because I am committed to making our community safe and doing the right things, even if it's not necessarily a popular decision.
Everyone said it'll get better after the election. Air quotes.
Yes, air quotes.
We're still extremely polarized. And you have some harsh critics who have looked at recent decisions by your office and you personally to say, I'm not going to charge. Okay, we'll start with Ryan Whitaker
right.
in that case. And then you have a city council that unanimously said he did everything right. They give the family $3 million.
Right.
Do you think that is in any way a referendum against the decision your office and you personally made?
I think people can certainly take that perspective, because when you look at Ryan Whitaker, who passed away, that was a tragedy that didn't need to happen. And ultimately, in hindsight, when we as lawyers and prosecutors here had the benefit of looking at the body-worn cameras frame by frame, that was an absolute tragedy. And I can't imagine what Mr. Whitaker's family is going through. But legally, what the officer thought was happening at the time is what we have to work with to prove our case. And what I'd like for the community to know is that as lawyers and prosecutors, we are held to an ethical standard, and prosecutors more so. That is to protect the rights of the accused, but it is also to make sure that we are bringing the right cases forward, the right cases to trial. Our standard here in the office is there a reasonable likelihood of conviction? Did somebody actually commit a crime? I mean, could you imagine if we didn't have those standards? And that's why we also come together as a group within this office with experience to have the discussion of should we move forward with this case, so that we don't have just one person making a decision in a vacuum, especially when we have cases involving, law enforcement, members of the community, cases of community interest. I can assure the public that we are committed to doing the right things for the right reasons. And the decisions might not sit well with people, especially in a tragedy. But we have to abide by our ethical duties. We have to treat similarly situated people the same, so that we are doing the right things for the right reasons. And sometimes those outcomes can be disappointing and hurtful. But again, in this office, I am committed, and I expect our staff and our lawyers to be committed to those high ethical standards and legal standards and burdens of proof.
And to that vein, I think it was just last week, you put out a release saying in the pursuit of justice, we're going to drop the charges against these more than a dozen indicted as a part of a criminal street gang. And I understand the grand jury was given expert testimony that these ACAB street gang participants were likened to as potentially dangerous as Bloods and Crips. That clicks for a lot of people. Yes. Who would say there's no way that there's a parallel there. Is that part of the reason why, did that have any bearing on why you dropped those charges?
Well, the reason why I dropped the charges, because after we had a review of them, what we call incident review, with seasoned attorneys in the office, we come together and, I am there for a lot of those. In this case in particular, I wanted to be there because I had concerns about the nature of the charges and who was charged. And I get a recommendation from that group, and then ultimately I make the decision. Unfortunately, that review didn't happen right away, and there was, mistakes in our protocol and process where I really needed to be in the loop more on that, and we remedied that on last Friday. Actually, that was a difficult case, and there are varying degrees of culpability or not culpability, of innocence or no reasonable likelihood of conviction. So, in making those decisions, we need to make sure that we are consistent, we are protecting the community, but also that we are protecting the rights of the accused. And that's why we want the law enforcement agency, the Phoenix Police, to provide any additional information that they have for our consideration. So what we did with some of them is we sent it back for further investigation to decide, do we need to bring charges against some of these people again? Is there a reasonable likelihood of conviction? And some of them, we need to make sure that they are protected, and that if we have exculpatory evidence, that we know about it and fully assess our cases and follow our ethical duties, because we need that, the community needs that, the accused needs that. So we are making sure we do the right things for the right reasons. And my decisions sometimes are unpopular, but I can tell everyone that I am committed to that mantra, if you will, because for me, that is so important for confidence in the community, law enforcement, victims, and everyone, to make sure we're safe, especially during our trying times right now.
I have to imagine that allegations of political prosecution is something your office definitely doesn't take lightly, considering especially the history of this office. Your predecessor, Andy Thomas, got disbarred for such.
You know, and some people have made the unfortunate connection of me with Mr. Thomas. I was here during the Thomas era. I was a prosecutor during that era, and luckily was supported by my supervisors when I would say, we can't bring charges against this person, because I will not compromise my ethical duties. I was even on the State Bar Ethics Committee. That's something that's very important to me and is ingrained into me. And even as a community member, as a past president of Phoenix Rotary 100, that is my commitment to our community and this office. I want to make sure that the community has confidence in what we're doing. And again, we might not always agree. My decisions aren't always going to be popular. But if we have a reasonable likelihood of conviction, we have a duty to bring forth charges. If we hear of exculpatory evidence or mitigating circumstances after we file charges, our prosecutors can come and say, you know what? We need to change course here. And if the evidence supports it, I support it.
I understand. Was it about 1,000 staff total, more or less?
Yes, we've got the third largest prosecution agency in the country. And that burden's not lost on me.
And so roughly 5 to 10% are only in office now. Most of them are still working remotely because of this pandemic situation we're in.
You are correct. You know, the court's operations also have been narrowed because of COVID. We're all protecting our county employees and victims and the accused. The jail inmates, the sheriff is doing his part too. We all are, just as the broader community is. So yes, of our 1,000 employees, we have a skeleton crew in here, but an adequate crew. We've all gotten to know Zoom, as everyone else has these days. It's part of our vocabulary, but we are still doing our job and serving the community.
In some ways, has that made your transition easing back a little more seamless?
You know, in some weird way, COVID did provide a little bit of a blessing in disguise to me in that sense, because I'm able to, you know, work from home more. But at the same time, it's important that I'm in the office as well. To be here for our crew, to make sure the community is assured that the person that they elect to this position is here, and working hard, and that we are all, as a community, moving forward. Hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll all be back 100%. But I'm here and I'm working hard.
Are you full-time now, or are you still part-time?
Oh, no. And, you know, this was obviously, when you're recovering from an injury such as this, you know, I slowly weaned back into things, but I was in contact with our amazing executive team. But I'm back full-time. It's great. It's wonderful to be back. And, you know, again, it was a transition into the full-time. But this job isn't exactly what you call part-time. If I need to be notified in the middle of the night, I'm there.
Yeah, on call all the time is
Yes.
what the job description is, right? So,
Yes.
did you ever have any reservations or fears along the way that you wouldn't be able to come back in your full capacity?
Oh, sure. When something like this happens, a big life-changing event to anyone, you know, it's certainly a time for reflection. And while I worried about it, the real question was, you know, I want to come back and I have to be 100%, because I made that commitment to the voters in the community. And I needed to do that. I needed to work hard and have the blessing from the healthcare professionals. But I also needed to look at, you know, my life. Can I still make that commitment and be an excellent wife and a mom and a community member? And I have to tell you that with that reflection and, you know, faith and relying on the process, I feel confident that I'm able to discharge all those duties and still make dinner for my kiddos and help with homework. And it's actually been great for my recovery to be back here in the office as well.
Good. And the family's doing well?
They're doing great. Our kiddos are going back to in-person school next week. They certainly miss their friends. But, you know, it's, again, I've had more time with them and my husband and our wonderful network of friends that we can come together. We're all learning what this new, hopefully temporary normal is with COVID, to take precautions. And drive-by birthday parties are great, but I'm looking forward to when we can all be back together in the office and have great relationships still with our neighbors. And it's been tough on all of us, but we're all going to get through it. I'm absolutely confident of that.
Awesome. And I think just to wrap it up, because I think there's still people who look at what's to come, right?
Yeah.
And we're coming off of a summer that was a hot mess in our community, and people were protesting constantly. And so it really pitted this divide, law enforcement, social justice. We need reform, and not just in Phoenix, but nationwide. So what would you tell those folks who didn't vote for you about your commitment to our community?
Well, I hope that I earn their confidence. And I know with some I won't. But don't look at the letter behind my name, R or D or whatever. Look at who I am as a person. Look at my record. And know that I find tremendous value in having conversations with interest groups, with advocates that see things differently than I do. I want to be engaged with that differing thought, that differing opinion, those voices in the community, because that's part of this job. Because if you work in a vacuum with blinders on, that is a disservice to everyone. So to those who didn't vote for me, it's okay, no hard feelings at all. But know that I am committed to working with integrity in this job. I'm not my predecessors. I'm proud to be the first woman elected, and I will make this community proud. And while we might not always agree on everything, what people can have confidence in is the mantra, again, that I've been preaching to our lawyers, is do the right thing, even if it's difficult, because we're doing the right things for the right reasons every single time. And we call that here ethical excellence. And again, if we all agreed, that really wouldn't make a lot of sense anyways. But having conversations and being open to hearing differing opinions, that is critical. And I'm committed to that.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Is there anything